Well, Peter Dutton today challenged the Prime Minister to debate Australia's use of nuclear energy at the National Press Club.
The Prime Minister should stand up and debate with me the issue of nuclear and energy in this country. I'll meet him at the Press Club or wherever he wants at any time. We can have the debate and we need it.
Albanese isn't jumping at the bit to have a debate with Dutton on nuclear. Well, far from it.
Peter Dutton's incapable. He hasn't been to a National Press Club yet. Not once. He's never done. He couldn't find it. He couldn't find it. You'd have to get him a map first, and you'll have to fly down to Canberra and drive him there because he doesn't know where it is.
Let's bring in our political panel, Labor MP Daniel Mulino in the rain in Melbourne and Nationals MP Keith Pitt in Bundaberg. Great to see you both. Daniel, why doesn't the Prime Minister want to have a debate on nuclear energy?
Well, hi, Sharri. And yeah, as you say, it's raining here. It was 3 days of 39 and now rain. That's very Melbourne. But it also shows my commitment to engage in political discourse with my parliamentary colleague Keith Pitt. But look, on this issue, I think what Peter Dutton's doing in going around the country saying, I'll debate anytime, anywhere, it really is political grandstanding and attention-seeking. If you look at the substance of the issue, and some of our nation's best thinkers in this space have all been saying this is not a short or even a medium-term solution. You look at people like Alan Finkel, who is very open to nuclear. He says it's at least 10 years, but more likely like 20 years before this is actually going to be contributing to the grid. Tony Wood from Grattan, a report that was just cited earlier today that went to Gladys Berejiklian. All of the workforce challenges, setting up a whole regulatory arrangement. This is a 20-year challenge. We need to have fixed this problem by then, not just been thinking about where we start putting new generation into the grid. The Libs are basically looking for a silver bullet here when it's going to require a whole range of regulatory measures.
No, Daniel, we appreciate your commitment to have the debate about this in the rain in Melbourne. But Keith, you know, you've long been an advocate for adding nuclear energy to the mix in Australia. What's your response to the many arguments that Daniel just made?
Well, it actually makes my case for me, Sharri. All of those things are true. You do need a regulatory regime. You do need technical capacity. You do need a nuclear domestic industry. And guess what? You'll get all of those because you have to as part of the AUKUS program. In fact, Labor said themselves there'll be some 10,000 people who are employed in those programs around the nuclear submarine program itself. On top of that, they'll have to have technical expertise. So why wouldn't we utilise that technical expertise for the benefit of the country? And as for Peter, wanting to have a debate, well, that's great. Is there political risk associated with this? Of course there is. But guess what? It is worth it because it's in the national interest. These are the right decisions for our country. If you want a net zero generation system, nuclear is all there is. It's reliable, it's affordable, it works, it's utilised around the world, and in fact by a lot of countries who we're very closely associated with. And it has to be done anyway, including dealing with high-level waste. And guess who's got to deliver it? The Labor Party.
Yeah, this is going to shape up to be a big issue ahead of the next election. The PM today, you saw him there in his Akubra hat. He unveiled a $4 billion remote housing package for the Northern Territory. This after the failed Voice referendum. His plan aims to build hundreds of homes over the next decade. Daniel, we haven't heard much from Labor in the Indigenous space since the referendum failed late last year. Do you think this is, doing enough in the space? Because Labor has now been in office for over a year and a half.
Well, look, I think this is a critically important issue all around the country. Housing affordability has been an issue that's been emerging for many years in Australia, but it's particularly pronounced in our regions and in areas such as Northern Australia. So, look, I think this is a really important concrete step that is going to make a really big difference to the quality of life and to the security of the livelihoods of many hundreds of families. So $4 billion is a very significant achievement. Look, I don't think it rules out further steps when it comes to, dealing with the Indigenous community. And I think the Minister for Indigenous Affairs rightly is going back to that community and consulting with the next steps. But in the meantime, I think the government rightly is going to be taking a series of concrete steps, and this is a really big one.
Keith, what do you think about this announcement today? Because, you know, there has been a lot of criticism of Labor that, yes, they had the voice referendum, but there were no other ideas for closing the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians.
Sharri, there's two things that worry me about this. The first one is you don't have to go back too far, you don't have to think too hard to see what happened last time with a thing called SIHIP, the Strategic Indigenous Home and Infrastructure Program in the Northern Territory. I think some $700 million committed to by the previous Labor government, the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd government. And what happened? Well, the reports were 70% of the available money went in consultation, administration, design and engineers, not into houses. And the second point, and I want to reinforce one from the representative of the Northern Territory Police this morning. The first homes that should be built in those regions are ones to house the police force who are there to enforce the law, who currently don't have the assets that they need. So they should be straight up and down, first things built to ensure that we can get more law enforcement into those areas to try and address some of these really challenging problems up front. Right, these are the tough decisions that have to be made. But I'm worried about what will happen. I'm worried about what's happened previously, and we don't want to see that movie again.